Good morning. So good to be back with you. I hope you've had a great summer. It's winding down here. The kids are going back to school this week. That means the activities here at Oldham Lane have also started to wind down. We had a great summer here, a great preacher training camp, great Shine Girls Camp. We're in the midst of our summer series, but it's starting to wind down as well. We do a lot of activities here, and that's why I needed the break to kind of focus in that direction. I hope you understand, but I'm glad you're tuning back in. Please share about the C3 devotionals. Let people know. You can find it right here on Facebook Live at the Oldham Lane page. If you need some help finding it or anything, please just let me know. And also keep track with the podcast, Dear Church. You can find it at iTunes and Spotify, YouTube, or here on Facebook. Ripple of Light does a great job producing that, as well as our television program that we run every Sunday morning, and I always want to give them credit as well. And anything else you want to keep up with concerning Oldham Lane or myself, you can follow me on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, and also the Oldham Lane website, olcoc.com. Thanks again for tuning in. Most of you here, I'm sure, have seen the movie The Wizard of Oz. You might remember in that movie there were three main characters who accompanied Dorothy on her journey to see the wizard. They were the Scarecrow, the Lion, and the Tin Man. And each one of these characters wanted something from the wizard. For the Tin Man, it was the heart. You remember the song he sang? Don't worry, I'm not going to sing it. But the words were, "When a man's an empty kettle, he should be on his mettle, and yet I'm torn apart. Just because I'm presuming that I could be kind of human if I only had a heart. I'd be tender, I'd be gentle, and awful sentimental regarding love and art. I'd be friends with the sparrows and the boys who shoot the arrows if I only had a heart." The Tin Man so desperately desired a heart. Well, God has given us a heart. And not only has He given us a large muscle in the upper left quadrant of our chest cavity that pumps blood throughout the body, He's also given us what the Tin Man longed for, which is the essence of our being. The Tin Man longed for something that we all tend to take for granted. He longed to be something more than just a machine or a pile of metal. He didn't just want to exist, he wanted to live. All of us feel things in our hearts. All of us have given our hearts to someone or to something. We've probably had our hearts broken or stepped on. We understand what it means to have a heart. Now, the heart is a very powerful organ. It beats about 100,000 times a day. It pumps approximately 2,000 gallons of blood through 60,000 miles of blood vessels each day. A kitchen faucet would have to be turned on all the way for at least 45 years to equal the amount of blood pumped by the heart in an average lifetime. Every day, the human heart creates enough energy to drive a truck 20 miles. In a lifetime, that would be the equivalent of driving to the moon and back. And because the heart has its own electrical impulse, it can continue to beat even when separated from the body, so long as it has an adequate supply of oxygen. That's the physical heart, and it is truly powerful. But the Bible refers to an even greater heart, a heart that represents so much more than just an organ that pumps blood. The heart that we see described in Scripture is the center of man's being. It includes the mind, the will, our personality, our feelings. And Paul emphasized all three senses in the book of Romans. Romans chapter 1, verse 21 reads, "For even though they knew God, they did not honor Him as God or give thanks, but they became futile in their speculations, and their foolish heart was darkened." Now in Romans chapter 2, verse 5, he writes, "But because of your stubbornness and unrepentant heart, you are storing up wrath and revelation of the righteous judgment of God." And in Romans chapter 5, verse 5, Paul states, "And hope does not disappoint, because the love of God has been poured out within our hearts through the Holy Spirit who was given to us." Paul points out that the heart represents what we think, what we feel, what we do. The heart is the inner person. It is the source from which everything else comes. Proverbs 4:23, "Watch over your heart with all diligence, for from it flow the springs of life." Let me ask you, how would you define a good Christian? Maybe someone who attends church every Sunday? Someone who gives more than 10%? someone who goes on a mission trip, maybe someone who comes to Bible class or the gospel meetings or to worship every time the doors are open, maybe someone who serves on the Lord's table or leads a prayer, maybe even preaches from time to time. Now, these are all good things, but all too often they are considered to be only things, the only things by many. While all of these are good things, they do not get to the heart of the matter, which is a matter of the heart. Are all these things sufficient? The very fact that we ask that question says something, doesn't it? You could do all those good things I just mentioned and still miss the heart of the matter. Someone may be religiously respectable. A person may read their Bible on a daily basis. They may attend church every time the doors are open. They may be a leader in the church, and yet their heart may still be far from God. Now, this seems rather abnormal to us because we live in a culture that believes something is better than nothing. In other words, even if you're doing the bare minimum in the way of religion, at least you're better off than most. Many believe at a pretty profound level that it doesn't matter how much you give to God, just give something. But in Matthew chapter 22, as the Pharisees surrounded Jesus, a lawyer tests him with a question. "Teacher," he says, "which is the greatest commandment in the law?" Now, it's important to understand that among the Jewish teachers, such a question was hotly debated. How many commandments are there in total? And don't say 10. Actually, there's 613, 365 negative, and 248 positive. The Jews recognized the difficulty of keeping all 613 of these commandments, and therefore they categorized them as heavy or more important and light or less important. So the debate came in trying to determine which was the heaviest or most important. So the Pharisees set a trap for Jesus. Whatever answer he gave, he was bound to alienate a large portion of the crowd. Jesus had already silenced the Sadducees. They had attempted to go toe-to-toe with Jesus, but were defeated. The Pharisees, however, would not give up so easily. The question was asked, what is the greatest commandment? And Jesus answers, "You shall love the Lord your God with all of your heart and mind, all your soul, with all your strength. This is the great and foremost commandment." But he doesn't stop there. Jesus continues without being prodded. "The second is like it," he says, "you shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments depend the whole law and the prophets." The Pharisees exhibited religiosity, but their heart was far from God. Religious devotion was connected to ritual and ceremony, not relationship. The emphasis was on the external and the outward qualifications at the expense of the inner man. Attention to appearance trumped attention to the heart. Jesus constantly emphasized the heart. His message to the Pharisees and to his disciples was, in essence, that it does not matter how clean you are on the outside if the inside is filthy. The heart is what defiles the man. The Jews were devout in seeking God through ritual when they should have been dedicated to seeking a relationship. We'll talk more about this tomorrow, but Christianity is more than a religion, it's a person. And when your heart is invested, you'll naturally seek to do right. Jesus even said, "If you love me, you will keep my commandments." When Jesus spoke in Matthew 5 about being angry with one's brother, committing adultery in one's heart, making false vows, or loving your enemies, he was illustrating the fact that following the letter of the law does not necessarily make one righteous. You can be straight as a gun barrel doctrinally, but empty as a gun barrel spiritually. It's not just about avoiding certain behaviors. It's about having the type of heart that seeks to be righteous. Remember when Jesus said these words in Matthew chapter 15? Jesus said, "Are you still lacking in understanding also? Do you not understand that everything that goes into the mouth passes into the stomach and is eliminated? But the things that proceed out of the mouth come from the heart, and those defile the man. For out of the heart come evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witness, slanders. These are the things which defile the man. But to eat with unwashed hands does not defile the man." Jesus is getting to the heart of the issue, and the heart of the issue is an issue of the heart. Simply following the rules won't lead to righteousness, especially when those rules are man-made and not God-ordained. We all know of people who have never committed murder, but they're not Christians. We all know of individuals who would never even dream of stealing something, but they're not righteous. We all know good people who are not godly. It's not simply about following the letter of the law. It's about writing it on your heart. Christianity is not some surface religion. It's not about an outward display or external compliance. Being a Christ follower is all about the heart because the heart determines which path you will take. A heart given to sin will always take the broad path, while a heart devoted to Christ will strive to enter through the narrow gate and walk the narrow way. In a very concise yet profound way, Jesus summed up all of Christianity when he stated that we are to love our neighbor as ourselves, that we are to love the Lord our God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength. That's Christianity in its simplest and purest form, isn't it? Love God, love your neighbor. Do you know what a new heart costs? The approximate total cost of a single heart transplant is somewhere around $865,000. Now, this figure would include the cost of obtaining a donor heart, doctor's fees, hospital costs, post-operative care, and medications. Needless to say, a new heart is quite expensive. A new heart is costly, and it is from a spiritual perspective as well. It cost Jesus everything. He died so that we could have a new heart. And for some of you sitting here this morning, it may be time for a heart transplant. Maybe it's time to give your all to the one who gave his all for you. What I notice in ministry all too often is that there are several folks who want to give the minimum but expect the maximum. Maybe it's time to revive your heart. Maybe it's time to shock it back into service. Maybe it's time to go all in. Maybe you've never done that before. But do not turn me off this morning without seriously contemplating this all-important question. Does God have my heart? And if he doesn't, then you know what you need to do. And like I say all the time, if you need my help, please reach out. Contact me through Messenger on Facebook or email me at cmccurley@olc.com. I would love to talk with you. I'm here to help you. I love you. Have hope today and have a blessed day. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.